right now, something is counting your hours. A badge scanner, a login timestamp, a small green dot next to your name that tells other people you are available. Nobody counted your ancestors. Not for roughly 300,000 years. Then, in the summer of 1964, a young anthropologist walked into the Kalahari with a notebook and a wristwatch and counted them anyway. The number he brought back is the most repeated statistic in the history of anthropology. It is also wrong, and what replaced it is far stranger than the myth. Stay with this. By the end, you will know what a foraging work week actually contained, hour by hour, and you will not look at your own Thursday afternoon the same way again. The anthropologist was Richard Lee. The place was Dobe, a cluster of camps on the edge of the Kalahari, in what is now Botswana. The people were called the Kong in the old books. In their own language, they are the Zhu Tuan. See, Lee did something almost nobody had bothered to do. He did not ask people what they did all day. He followed them, and he timed it. Every adult in camp. 4 straight weeks. Who left, when they left, what they carried back, how long it took. 2 hours and 9 minutes. That was the daily average for getting food. Call it 15 hours a week. Around a third of your week, and these people were feeding a camp in a desert. The number escaped. 1966, at a conference in Chicago, an anthropologist named Marshall Sahlins took Lee's stopwatch data and built an idea on top of it that has never gone away. He called foragers the original affluent society. Not because they had much, because they wanted little and got it fast. 15 hours a week. It has been on 1 million posters since. Hold that number. Lee kept working, and 15 years later his own arithmetic had changed. Keep that at the back of your mind. And keep one more thing back there too. A second number is coming from medieval England, and that one is going to sting. First, confirmation. Because one in one desert proves nothing. While Lee was in the Kalahari, a British anthropologist named James Woodburn was living with the Hadza in northern Tanzania. Different language, different animals. Same question. Woodburn reported that Hadza adults got their food on less than 2 hours of effort a day. Some men hunted hard and often. Many did not hunt for weeks and gambled instead, flipping carved bark discs in a dice game that could run all afternoon, while the women brought in most of the calories. So it was not a fluke. 2 of the most closely studied foraging peoples on Earth, measured independently, both landed near 2 hours. By now you have probably already spotted the hole. 2 hours to get the food. What happens to the food after it arrives? Here is what never made it onto the poster. A mongongo nut, the staple of the Zhu Tuan Sea diet, comes sealed in a shell hard enough to crack a tooth. You roast it. Break it open on a stone, one at a time, hundreds of times. That is not a rounding error. Then there is water to haul, sometimes for miles, arrows to straighten, poison to prepare, shelters to rebuild after rain, skins to scrape soft, children to keep alive through the night. Frank Marlowe, who lived with the Hadza for years and wrote the standard book on them, put their true working day far north of 2 hours, once the work done inside camp was counted. Lee knew, and to his real credit, he went back and counted it himself. In 1979, he published the full accounting in a book called The Kong San. Food getting, tool making and repair, and housework, all of it, all week. The men came out around 44.5 hours. The women around 40. Read those 2 numbers again. 40 hours a week, 44 hours a week. Your ancestors, in a desert, with no metal and no wheel, worked almost exactly the week you work. The original affluent society did not have a shorter week. That was never the finding. That was the poster. So if the hours were the same, what did they have that you do not? You are in that camp. It is not hot yet. 5 or 6 women leave together, walking toward a grove they have been talking about for days, and they talk the whole way out. The walk is the work. The walk is also the visit. They come back loaded, and the work does not stop. It just moves into the shade, cracking, roasting, sorting, arguing about somebody's brother. Children climbing over everything. No line anywhere marking where the job ends and the afternoon begins. That is what the stopwatch could not see. James Suzman, an anthropologist who has spent 3 decades with the Zhu Tuan Sea, keeps circling this. Their language has no clean word for what you mean by a job. No word that slices a day to paid time and real time. The category is missing because the border it describes was never there. The hours were the same. The hours were never the point. Woodburn, the man who timed the Hadza, spent the rest of his career on what actually separates them from you, and it has nothing to do with duration. He divided human economies into two kinds. In the first, you go out, you get food, you eat it today. Your labor becomes a full stomach within hours, and then it is gone. He called that immediate return. In the second, your labor goes into something that waits. A field, a herd, a granary, a pension. You work now, and the value sits somewhere, holding, for months or years or decades. Delayed return. That sounds like a footnote. It is the most consequential fact in human history. Because labor that can be stored can be owned, and labor that can be owned can be taken. Nobody could bank a Hadza man's hunt. There was nothing to bank. Meat rotted in 2 days, so it got shared out. And sharing was not sweetness. It was the only storage technology available. Nothing piled up. And because nothing piled up, nobody could sit on the pile and start issuing instructions. Woodburn's foragers were not equal because they were kind. They were equal because the physics of their food made inequality impossible to build. Then grain. Grain keeps. Grain sits in a sealed pit through a whole winter and comes out edible, which means that for the first time your work had an afterlife. And an afterlife can have a landlord. That is the trade your ancestors made. Not free time for labor. They barely had free time to give. They gave up ownership. Now the second number. Juliet Shore, an economist at Boston College, went through medieval records and put the English peasant's working year at somewhere around 1,600 hours. Other economists say she was generous, and the argument over the exact figure is still running. Skip the argument. What sits underneath it is not disputed. The medieval calendar had holy days written into it by law. Dozens of them. Days on which work was not optional but forbidden. Your calendar contains no day on which work is forbidden. That peasant was poorer than you in every way you can measure. Colder, hungrier, sicker, far more likely to bury a child before it walked. His year contained days that could not be claimed by anyone at any price. Find one of those in yours. And here is where it lands on your body. Herman Pontzer, a biological anthropologist at Duke, measured how much energy the Hadza actually burn. Hadza men cover something like 7 miles a day. They dig tubers out of hard ground, climb trees for honey, carry meat home. His results, published in 2012, wrecked a comfortable assumption. The Hadza burn roughly the same total calories per day as an office worker in Chicago. Same energy, same hours. So why are you this tired? Because your hours have holes in them, and other people's hands keep reaching through. The phone at dinner. The message at 9 at night that you answer in 11 seconds, because not answering costs something you would rather not measure. The holiday you take with a laptop in the bag. No woman cracking mongongo nuts in the shade was ever interruptible by a man 400 miles away who needed it by Monday. Then there is the deepest version of it. You have already sold hours you have not lived yet. 30 years of mortgage. A loan borrowed against a decade of Tuesdays. Delayed return did not stop at the granary wall. It moved inside the human lifespan and began claiming the future. That is what the stopwatch missed in 1964. Not how long they worked, who the hours belonged to. Right now, something is still counting your hours. It is not counting how many. It is counting how many of them are yours. And it has been getting a better answer than you have for 10,000 years. Ask a Jutuan Sea elder how many hours she works, and the question refuses to translate. Ask yourself, and the number comes back instantly, which should tell you something. So ask the other one, the one nobody built a stopwatch for. When tonight's work is finished, is it finished? If the world you came from feels a little closer now, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, and every week we'll uncover another piece of who you used to be.